The world has moved on and time has grown strange.
Car's a wheel, Doc.
Ka? What does Ka mean?
It means you're playing someone who's going to destroy you.
All things serve the bee.
Tell the man in black I say hello.
The world as Roland had always known it would be swept away. It starts here. From its field of roses, the Dark Tower cries out in its beast's voice. Time is a bass on the water.
Hello and welcome to Tower Junkies, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. Tower Junkies is a podcast celebrating the work of Stephen King, hosted by two lifelong constant readers. We do non-spoiler and spoiler reviews of King's published work and take a critical look at his film and television adaptations as well. We also discuss the latest King news and check in with each other on our ongoing King obsessions. It's the podcast where all things serve the King. You can find more of our work at TowerJunkiesPod.com. You can also like the Facebook page at Facebook.com/TowerJunkiesPod and follow us on Twitter and every other level of social media at Tower Junkies Pod. And if you'd like to support what we do here, you can become a patron at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer for a ridiculous amount of bonus content spread across all of ObsessiveViewer.com's various podcasts, including a special $4 monthly tier that gets you access to only the Stephen King related content on Patreon, which includes commentary tracks, book reaction reviews, immediate reactions to movies, TV shows, all of this stuff. A bunch of stuff. So again, that's at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. I'm currently doing a weekly series on the Holly Gibney universe. So I'm doing read-along reviews of all the Holly Gibney related fiction in Stephen King's canon. So I did a 3-part series on Mr. Mercedes, a 3-part series on Finders Keepers, a 4-part series on End of Watch, and I'm currently working on The Outsider in a 4-part series. So that's all at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. I'm one of your hosts, Matt Hurt, and today on the show, we're continuing our journey to the Dark Tower with a look at the Gunslinger Chapter 4, titled The Slow Mutants, and joining me to do that, of course, is Tiny. Hi, Tiny. How are you doing this evening?
Hey, bud. I am doing fantastical. How are you?
Great. I'm doing quite well. We did another kind of thing, another plug for Patreon, but we did a pre-show recording for Patreon that is basically what we're calling the Wheel of Ka, where we kind of talk freely about the series in a warm-up recording. So we had a nice little chat on there about Jake Chambers and David the Hawk. So that was a lot of fun. What did you think of it?
Yeah, good times. I appreciate you putting those together. I appreciate the thought you put into it.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's funny because I had two bullet points there that I just completely forgot to even bring up. So maybe we'll hit that next time.
Take it back.
Yeah. So check that out, patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Before we get into the show, we're going to do a little bit of Stephen King news and check-ins. I don't have much here. And I don't have, I only have one piece of Stephen King news. Do you want me to go ahead and give you that, Tiny?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So Stephen King 4 days ago tweeted a picture of Molly, a.k.a. the Thing of Evil, his beloved dog, with a surgical kind of mark on the back of her neck, saying that she... and there hasn't really been an update from him regarding the results or anything, but the picture, the post, the tweet rather, was Molly, aka the Thing of Evil, had surgery yesterday to have a tumor removed from her neck. All kidding aside, she's actually a very good dog, and we hope the biopsy will show it was benign. And then he followed it up with thank you to all the people who expressed concern and love for Molly, aka the Thing of Evil. I am very grateful. So he hasn't posted anything about Molly, but hopefully she's okay, and hopefully everything is okay, and hopefully she has many more years of evilness to attend to. Yeah,
poor puppy.
Yeah, little puppy. I still really want that Funko Pop. That's him and Molly. Like,
I didn't
yeah.
even know that was a thing.
Oh yeah, it's I don't know if it was a limited thing or I don't know, but it's something that I've all like. I don't really get into the Funko Pop things anymore. I used to have a whole box full of them, and I'm like I didn't really have shelving to put them on or anything, and I was just like I just gave them to Half Price Books. Like I just sold them all.
Yeah.
But I would probably get that one. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's the only piece of Stephen King news that I have, though.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have any check-ins, Tiny?
I don't have a Stephen King check-in, but I did recently download the Libby app on my phone, and I got set up on there, and the first book that I was able to get a loan for was one that you recently reviewed, and it's in the thriller genre, The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Yeah. I did like 6 holds on books, and that was the first one that became available. So I was like, all right, I'll take it. And
nice.
I'm only like 60, 70 pages in as of yesterday. So I'm not that far into it, but I'm liking it so far. So
sweet. Yeah. Okay. Let me go on a bit of a tangent here, or a big spiel for Libby, because this thing changed my damn life. If you, I was gonna say if you're into audiobooks and stuff, but if you're into any books, obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you are at least literate. So, my preferred way to consume a book is through audiobook. For years, I've had a subscription to Audible, $14.99 a month for 1 credit each month. They have sales for credits or sales for audiobooks where it's like, okay, yeah, if I see a book that I really want that's less than that, it's on sale for less than $14.99, I'll purchase it. If I have the money and everything. So I have amassed a library of like 245 audiobooks on Audible. And I've made a very good dent in it. I'm down to like 130, I think, that I haven't listened to. But 3-4 months ago, I got an updated library card since I moved last year. And I just downloaded Libby, and Libby is freaking amazing, and libraries are freaking amazing. And I have gone through like 40 audiobooks on Libby since May, and that's insane. Yeah. So that's my plug for Libby. Yeah. I'm very, very happy. Yeah.
I'm liking it so far. I'm going to use it for like ebooks.
Nice.
Because I want to be able to like listen to one on Audible, but I don't listen to Audible a ton, and so then I can read one on my phone when I have downtime or whatever. So yeah, I
like that. Yeah, and that's another thing that I part of the library, the Indianapolis Public Library. They actually, tomorrow's the end of it, but they're doing a summer reading challenge where if you log your reading and everything, and each milestone you get like a ticket, and you can submit those tickets for raffles and everything. So I've been doing that all summer, and I've gotten like 40 some tickets, and the prize packs they have for it are pretty interesting. There's like a whole like tier of them for coffee, like either you can get like a French press or a Keurig machine, and a bunch of like coffee related stuff, or you can get like a spa day package for local like spa places or something here. But then they have the Library Lover, where you can get a Kindle Paperwhite and free ebooks and stuff, and like a free case and mug and stuff for it. And I'm just like, I put all of my tickets in the ebook one, because I used to have a Kindle and I used to have a tablet, but I don't have those anymore. This was years and years ago, and I was just like, I should definitely get like a Kindle. I should get an ebook reader so that I can like physically read books for a change. And also the great thing about Libby is that you can download it onto an ebook player, like a device like a Kindle, and have it like open in Kindle and get ebooks.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So very cool stuff. But anyway, all that's to say that I am thinking about getting back into ebooks.
Nice.
Yeah. Just the portability of it's good too.
Sure.
Yeah. So anyway, in terms of check-ins for me, I don't really have much of anything except that I've been going through The Outsider for the Patreon stuff on Sundays. Lot of I'm getting a lot out of that novel. This is my second or third time reading it. You've read The Outsider?
I have. I really liked it.
Okay, nice. Yeah. I don't think we ever actually covered it properly.
I don't think we did.
No, but yeah, I'm glad you liked it. I'm really liking it too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that. In terms of books that are not Stephen King that I've consumed lately, today I just finished Geneva Rose's You Shouldn't Have Come Here, which was such a blast. So it is this thriller about a woman who is on vacation. She goes to a ranch that's an Airbnb, and then thrillery stuff happens. And she gets kind of close with the man who lives there, and then thrillery things happen. And it was a blast. Like the level that she has, that Geneva Rose has in terms of plotting out the narrative and the suspense, it is like this kinetic energy between these two characters that the perspective changes between the two characters. It alternates between the two characters, which I really like when it does that. But there's just this palpable energy between them that doubles as this kind of sexual chemistry between them, and this just sense of foreboding that we're not privy to what is really going on, but we know at all times that there is something more to this story than what meets the eye. And the really clever and interesting thing for me was that it's so well disguised, and it is so well written, and so it's so engaging on a character level that sense of foreboding, that sense of doom, that sense of something is amiss here. There were moments in the book where I'm like, okay, something is not connecting quite that well, and there's something sinister going on. But I'm like, but wait, who is being the sinister one? Where is the source of this sinister energy that's permeating this entire book? And it's just it was such a fun story. I really liked it. So anyway, that's not connected to Stephen King, but if you like Stephen King, you might enjoy that. It's You Shouldn't Have Come Here by Geneva Rose. So yeah.
That's awesome that you're branching out so much too to different authors and stuff.
Yeah, I'm really excited that I'm doing a lot of branching out and everything. Plus, it helps that I have freaking 300 books on tagged as to read fiction, and another 300 books that I have tagged to read nonfiction. So yeah,
wow.
Yeah, it's dumb. It's dumb. But anyway, yeah. So that's my check-in, and yeah. So I'm excited for you to dive into Libby and presumably save some money on Audible. I don't know if you're going to keep your Audible account active. I'm going
to, because Paige has actually gotten into it. We share an account basically. She's obsessed with the Outlander books. And so she's like, we have paper not hardback, but physical copies of all the books. Wow. And she's read through all of them once. And now she was like, I wanted to try the audiobooks. And she listened to the first one and she it was like a whole nother experience for her. Cause she was like, oh, like there's like this, it's like watching a movie. Cause there's like all this performance. And I was like, right. Like, it's great. Cause it's like an actor is acting. And I'm like, yeah, I totally get what you're saying. And so she has been like, she bought a set of Bluetooth headphones just so she can listen to Audible. Like I think she's on like the 5th book, I think so far. Awesome. So yeah, she's been enjoying that. And I'm going to try to get her to listen to some other books besides. Sure. Because she's not a reader. She just is not. Yeah. And so
it's understandable.
Yeah, anyway, so yeah, I'm going to hang on to my Audible for that reason. So.
Well, here's the thing with Audible, like, do you already have all the Outlander books on your Audible?
Just the 5 so far, and I think there's 9 books right now.
Okay, because I was going to say, like, you can pause your Audible, but you still have access to everything in your library.
Oh,
like,
okay,
yeah. So, like, the way that it works is that if you go to your account, you can pause the membership. What it does is, depending on what level you're at, like if you have access to like the Audible Plus catalog thing, like those won't be available to you. If you have it paused, but everything that you've used like a credit to buy or you've purchased is in your library, like for, it's accessible. Like, I've been listening to the Gunslinger through Audible, and, I just started today Pale Blue Dot by Carl Sagan, on Audible. But the way that it works is that if you pause your account, you can pause it for 90 days at a time. So my next credit is coming next week. And I'm curious if I can pause it again after that goes through. I'm not sure, but anyway, but just a little tip there for you.
Okay. Right on.
Yeah. Okay, well, enough about all of this. Let's go ahead and get into our review of this section of the Gunslinger. Once again, we're going to be covering the Slow Mutants, which is the penultimate chapter of the Gunslinger. This section of the book was originally published in the magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction in July of 1981. And yeah, we're going to be discussing it. But before we do that, I will give a brief, very ill-prepared, but brief previously on the Dark Tower. Roland and Jake eventually make their way out of the desert, and Roland rescues Jake from an encounter with a succubus and tells him to hold on to the jawbone as a protective charm. Roland couples with the succubus, who is also an oracle, to learn more about his fate and the path to the Dark Tower. Over the course of time doing that, this is where I'm going off script, by the way, if you can't tell. In the course of coupling with the succubus, he learns that a sacrifice will have to be made, and that Jake is not long for this world, and that he is going to encounter some people and numbers in his future. So very ominous. And then we get to the Slow Mutants. So I'll give like a brief overview of the Slow Mutants, and then we can get into it. We're going to do spoilers for this section. We're not going to spoil anything in the series going forward. If you want more spoilery stuff, check out patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Okay. So the summary for the Slow Mutants. Jake and Roland see the man in black at the mountain, and he tells them he will meet just one of them on the other side, which aggravates Jake's fears and that Roland will either kill or abandon him. That all happens at the end of the Oracle in the Mountains, but whatever. Roland and Jake make their way into the twisting tunnels within the mountain, traveling on an old railway handcar. They are attacked by monstrous subterranean creatures called Slow Mutants. Along the way, Roland tells Jake about his rite of passage as a child, and they encounter an abandoned subway train platform area. At the tunnel's exit, as the track on which they are traveling begins to break, Roland lets Jake fall into an abyss and continues his quest. Okay, so Tiny, how did you feel about the Slow Mutants this go around, and where do you want to begin with us talking about this section of the Gunslinger?
I really enjoyed it. I kind of had forgotten some of the pieces of this section, or I hadn't necessarily forgotten them, but I had thought they were in other parts of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was almost a bit of a surprise for me reading it this time. I kind of remembered like the plot, but there's some really nice backstory with Roland talking about his coming of age and all that. It's good for multiple reasons. We kind of went over that a little bit in Patreon. But yeah, this part is super satisfying because we get some good backstory on the characters, which is like a kind of like a trope in this book. You know, every section has a little slice of what made Roland the way he is now. Mm-hmm. So that's always great. I love those parts. But there's also some, you know, we move forward in the story. There's advancement of the plot. There's some development for Jake, and there's some action and some plot that moves the story along as well. So another great section of this book.
Yeah, absolutely. The action in this section is really, like, it's been a little while since we covered, it's been about a month since we covered the last section. And the thing that really stood out to me in this section is that it feels like the pacing of this book in this read along that we're doing, in this read through that we're doing, the pacing is really, really something else. It is really well done, in my opinion. And here it feels like this is like the climax of the novel. Like, this is the big set piece of the action movie in no uncertain terms. This is the two heroes traveling through this very dilapidated and frightening horror scenario, encountering mutants, having this very just like time sensitive thing with Jake, you know, trying to get the rocks away so that they can keep going, while Roland is killing all of these mutants. We have the sacrifice of Jake, and it just feels, and this is going to be such a hacky and goofy comparison, but it feels like this entire book, this read through of the Gunslinger for me has been like so cheesy, a fireworks display. Like, the first couple of sections feel like, okay, we're like, oh yeah, we're seeing these explosions in the sky. We're seeing all of the colors light up and everything. And then as we get deeper into the fireworks, it's happening more. There's more stuff. And then here it's like, all right, now we're just going to go nuts. But then, and this is, you know, foreshadowing for the next episode, but then we're going to get like the big finale with the Gunslinger and the Man in Black. But this is like, in terms of the action of the book, this is like the climax of the action, because as crazy and awesome as the last section of the book is, that is more or less the denouement of the story of the Gunslinger. Here, this is just like, this is King throwing all of his tricks on the page to give us a satisfying like crescendo of the story, and I really dug that about it this time around.
Absolutely, yeah. That's exactly what I was going to say. Is the last section's like a long denouement.
Yeah.
And so this feels like the culmination of what we've been leading to throughout the story. The peak of the story here. So oh gosh, what was I going to say? Crap, I completely lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
We mentioned in Patreon a little bit, kind of the presence of tension in this in this section, and I feel like that was introduced at the climax or the end of part 3, because both characters come to a realization, and there's kind of like no coming back from it. They come to the realization that Roland's like, I'm going to sacrifice Jake, and Jake comes to the realization that he's going to be sacrificed. And that's something you can't get around. Like, that's always going to be in the air. That's going to be present. And the way that's communicated in the story is just so good. Like, part of it is George Guidall's performance, because he, especially as Jake, like the way he delivers lines as Jake, he feels. I think I said it in Patreon. He sort of feels like a moody teenager. Who's just kind of like a little detached and not very into what Roland is saying and doing. He's just kind of there. And whenever the action picks up, he kind of gets much more animated and emotive, because he's like, well, this could be it. I could be dying right now because I'm going to die. I'm going to be sacrificed. And I love that. I love that back and forth in the story. Like, that's just, and it's just beautifully written. And I feel like part of the delivery is great too, from George Guidall reading Roland's lines too, because I feel like Roland is almost like trying to almost like kill time, or like he's telling these stories and talking to Jake, and he's realizing that Jake has lost some respect for him and is kind of detached from the situation. So it's almost like Roland is just rambling along, trying to make repairs to this relationship that are just falling flat. And it's really, it just felt that those two themes and those ideas, those attitudes of the characters felt really present in this read through and this performance from George Guidall. And like, I don't know that I ever picked up on that when I was reading the physical books. That I think the 2 times I've been through this, I don't know that I ever picked up on that. And it's fantastic. It's tense. It's palpable tension. Like, it's totally present. And I don't know that I ever experienced that until the audiobook. So I really appreciated that. Also, I mean, it's also a credit to Stephen King's writing as well. But again, it's just that level of authenticity or additional layers that you can get from an audiobook that I'm just so astounded by on this read through. And here it is again, part 3, 2, and 1. I've had the same reaction, because I'm picking up on things I never picked up from before. So
I totally agree. That level of kind of immersion with George Guidall's performance is unmatched. Like, I've said for years, like, Stephen King, his books have like the strongest roster of narrators for audiobooks that I've ever seen. It is insane. But that is so interesting too, that idea that you kind of hit on with Jake losing that level of respect for Roland. And it's so interesting to me too, because it feels like the trajectory of Jake's, his whole character arc in this story has kind of, and I think it's a microcosm of what King is doing in terms of this like melting pot, like stew of genres and conventions and archetypes and everything. But we have Roland, who is modeled after the man with no name, Clint Eastwood. Like, he is supposed to be like visually the perfect archetype of the Western, like, cowboy, like Western action hero. And what King does with Jake throughout this story is really interesting to me, because he's introducing him as a character that can be viewed as, someone who is going to penetrate Roland's cold, dead heart. He is going to be someone who is going to be able to create positive change in Roland. The bond is going to be strong, and it is that classic archetype of the old weathered hero and the young the young companion and how they grow together and everything. That is that is the arena that King is playing in. And in just a couple hundred pages, he is eschewing that entire premise. Like he's deconstructing that archetype, that trope in such an interesting way by not only leading us toward sacrificing of the child, like the death of the child in this is a big thing that happens, but he's doing it in such a way where he has that character and the character's like protector be aware that this is coming, and them not knowing what to do about it and not being willing to do anything about it. And the way that causes a rift in their relationship, especially in this chapter, obviously, is remarkable. I think it's great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, it's just so present in the story, and I love it for that.
Absolutely. So I love that. And then also, and we can go kind of point by point through the plot here and everything, but I do want to mention that this section is again reinforcing this idea that I've had through this reread and through the entire Dark Tower series as a whole, but the importance of storytelling and of oral storytelling, in the oral tradition, is so present in all of these books, in this entire series. There is a case to be made that is one of, if not the most important thing that King is communicating in the entire Dark Tower universe, is the importance of storytelling. And here we talked about it with, him talking about Tull and what was her name? The lady in Tull, the religious lady. Oh my God. Anyway, so thank you for listening to Tower Junkies. But anyway, but no, Sylvia Pittston. Anyway,
yes.
Yeah. So all of that, telling stories about hacks the chef and everything, hacks the cook, all of this, and then here we get his rite of passage with Court, him doing, his gunslinger thing, and him performing in this rite of passage and everything, and even before that, we get him telling Jake about. I think he and Cuthbert were kind of not spying, but they were being kids, and they were just discreetly watching the adults in their Kamala ritual or whatever. They're in the Great Hall thing. There's a word I'm looking for. The traditions and everything, and that's exposing how Stephen Deshane was cuckolded by Martin, who was with Gabriella. Anyway, it's just interesting the way that storytelling plays such a pivotal role in this book. I'll say that. And how the Russian nesting doll story structure is still kind of present in a way. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, the backstories are some of the best parts of the whole series. I really love this is like one of my favorite backstories, is Roland's coming of age, where he faces Court. I kind of forgot that the predecessor to that event, or kind of the onus for that event happening, is him discovering that his mother slept with Martin. I thought that was in a different part of the story for some reason. But it makes sense. He sees Martin, who obviously just, hooked up with his mom.
Right.
And Martin treats his mother poorly, treats him poorly, seems to be in control of her, abuses her, and treats him like crap, tells him to go enjoy his hand and stuff like that, and is obviously reading his mind or something, it makes sense because that, when you're 14 years old, you're a kid still, and he basically is the equivalent of a gunslinger throwing a tantrum. And I understand, people have done crazier things when they do crazy things when they discover something so horrific and so terrible. And I love that progression of, two huge events in his life are so closely linked and are, him going through his rite of passage is directly a result of his mother's actions and Martin's actions. I really just kind of love that. And just the description and the details of his fight with Court. And I love the frickin' dialogue. Court is one of my favorite characters, and he's so seldom in this story. He has obviously quite a few lines, but he doesn't come up a ton. And I just love the way he talks, and I love how he can jump between calling them maggots and then showing them respect in the same sentence. And he has this, obviously he's oozing with wisdom for these young boys, and it just there's a link there to being in sports when I was younger, and you have a tough coach or something. I think that's maybe the second time I've linked as the jock in me. The second time I've made a sports reference, but that's kind of what Court is. He seems like a bit of just like a tough coach, a real tough abusive coach. And I can relate to that too, especially freshman year, how rough it was for the coach to, just yell at me to put the cones down since I was the manager for the football team. Yeah. You were the starting manager.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Just daydreaming, looking up at the sky while you guys were sweating your asses off.
Right.
Good times. Anyway, sorry.
No, you're good.
Sorry for that in the past.
Nice. I love from the moment that Roland goes to Court's shack, his home or cottage, and kicks the door in. It's just I love the pedal on the gas that is that story, and just the way it builds up. And the back and forth dialogue is just some of the best in the whole series, I think. And one thing I think I had forgotten was that I always had this image in my head, or this idea in my head, that Roland is a bit of a, I don't know if prima donna is the right word, or just kind of has a bit of a chip on his shoulder because of the whole David the Hawk thing, where it's almost like he didn't technically cheat, but he sort of massaged the rules to his favor. And, he might be judged or looked at a certain way. It's like, oh yeah, he's the youngest gunslinger to ever earn his guns at the age of 14. It's like, well, yeah, but he used a hawk, and it was so not necessarily cheating, but kind of cheating. But so I kind of saw it that way, but I think that all kind of gets blown out of the water after this listen through, when I was listening to this. Because when it's all said and done and Roland has defeated Court is laying on the ground, not dying, but close to it.
Yeah.
And he is in full approval of what Roland did. He doesn't make any qualifications oh yeah, you beat me, but you used a hawk, you kind of cheated. You could have just used the knife, or he doesn't do that. And he shows him the proper respect, calls him gunslinger, and essentially compliments him, and is even smiling at him and showing him respect and telling him, hey, don't let this change anything, or use this, meet this mythic mythicism that's about to surround you, embrace it and be it and live up to it kind of thing is essentially what I kind of took away from his dialogue and his sayings toward, or how he reacted to Roland defeating him in this. Again, another perspective that I kind of gained on this read through, or kind of changed how I thought of this coming of age rite of passage story. So that's really interesting too. I'm going to touch on something about that in particular here in a second, but also something that struck me this read through, and like it's been a few years since I've read or listened to the Gunslinger. I don't remember if I communicated this in any of the other episodes, but this, like the rite of passage, this scene happens far later in the book than I remembered it happening. And I like that it's juxtaposed with Jake, like his impending sacrifice and everything. And like, I understand structurally why it's this late, why it's in this part of it, but it's just interesting since it's such a big moment, not only for this novel, but in just the whole course of Roland's backstory in general. It's like, it's a very important part of his story. It's his rite of passage. It's his coming of age. So that's that. I thought that it happened earlier in the book, but something about that, the way that Court is written, like, I think that I have taken him for granted as a character for a while. Like when you said that he's one of your favorite characters, I was kind of like, I can understand that, but yeah, I mean, I can understand that. He's probably not one of my favorites, but now talking about it, I'm kind of piecing together how kind of really interesting he is as a character, because on the surface, you can say like, oh yeah, he's very abusive toward the kids. Like it's built into it. It's like a military boot camp kind of like drill sergeant, like Arlie Ermy type of thing. And that's definitely like on the surface, that is the Court character. He is like, he's calling in the maggots and everything. He does switch around. He does have like, he's a teacher. Like he does switch around and he, like he, he trains with the carrot and the stick and everything. But something that stood out to me this time in talking it out and everything is how subtle his teaching is, or how aware of things he is. Because in the first flashback where Roland is talking about seeing Martin and going and going to his mother's apartments and seeing her with Martin, and her asking him like, hey, you know, how are your studies going? How's your training going and everything? And then either he or King say in the book, they say like, yeah, he was never really that good with, he wasn't as sharp or as smart as Cuthbert, or he wasn't as gifted in the touch as Elaine is or anything. And kind of the overall feel and vibe of that is that he's just not that strong of a student. Like, and that is an interesting thing to kind of have with the fact that he is the last gunslinger. He is a mythical hero basically. But when he goes to court and he's like, hey, yeah, I'm challenging you and everything, and then Court's like, yo, you're too early. You're, at least by 2 years, you're too early for this. So I'm going to give you one chance. You can cry off. You can not do it. And that'll be good. And then, he's like, no, we're doing this. And then after the battle, after the combat and everything, Court has that moment where he's just like, yeah, I knew that this was going to happen. I knew that you were worthy. I knew that you were going to be able to do this. And like, just the level of, I don't know if I'd say subtlety, but the level of layers to Court's teaching where he's like, yeah, I see the value in this person. Like, even though he's kind of following his emotions in order to challenge me 2 years early and 2 years earlier than his father did at his age, I'm not going to scoff at this, or I'm not going to let him fail.
And when he succeeds, if he succeeds, I will be there to, show appreciation for him and nurture him into his next stage or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was just a really interesting piece of characterization for Court, who by and large he's obviously not a big character in the series, but he reverberates through the series in some pretty big ways. So yeah, absolutely.
And again, I relate to it because I didn't. I mean, I never had a coach that was treated me like Court,
right? But
I had coaches that could be tough on me sometimes, and I to this day will still remember stuff that coaches told me during. I mean, that's the closest I can get to comparing myself to, being a gunslinger. But
right.
Yeah, like that stuff sticks with you. I mean, that's the best way I can put it. Is that's why I value sports. I'm not trying to go off on a tangent here, but that's the value I see in participating in sports. Is you learn lessons that reverberate through your entire life, and this feels similar to that. Like. Roland thinks of Court often for that reason.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how Court will, like you were saying, he's a prick, but he's also can be tender at times, and he can weave a lesson or something into anything. Like he will just toss a little nugget of wisdom at these kids that really makes you think, and the kids may not absorb it at the time, but when they're older, that stuff's like, oh, this is what Court was trying to say all those years ago. And man, I've been there. Samesies for me. So
yeah. And to go into just a quick tangent about football and everything in sports is that for the listeners, I was the football manager and the water boy in freshman year, and then I played football sophomore year, and then I did not play junior or senior year because I do not like being yelled at, and it makes me cry. So also I was lazy and I didn't really care for sports. So anyway, so I think that it's important backstory for Roland, and I think it goes a long way to connect to who he is as a person now, in such a way that only King can do with his beautiful, beautiful words. Yeah. And there was something else I was going to say about that. Also this is just kind of like, broad things here, but, when Roland is talking to Jake and he is having, like, he's giving like little scant details here and there. Like there is reference to him being of the line of Eld, and how there used to be a king named Eld, but now the time of kings have passed. There's no kings anymore. It's just like now my father, like at this point in the story and my backstory, my father was like the last like leader of the light, and it's the way that connects also with Roland as a kid thinking that, I'm going to be the first of my friends to be a gunslinger. And then like, even in that like brief moment, he's like, and he also had that needling thought that he's also going to be the last, which I just think is just beautiful, beautiful storytelling on King's part.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I totally agree. It's funny. I loved the metamorphosis he goes through, where it's like, it's truly a rite of passage. Like, he's acting more like a man as soon as he defeats Court, and, he goes to the brothel to lie with a woman. And,
yes.
He's truly, he like kind of almost like barks some orders at his friends after, like, go get the nurses, get 2 nurses and stuff like that. He's immediately changed. Like, it's a true rite of passage. I appreciated that writing as well. Yeah,
absolutely. So in quote unquote present day, we have Jake and Roland finding the railroad track with the handcart. The thing that I didn't mention in the Patreon segment, and I'm not going to speak too in depth about it because technically it's not spoilers, but it is in relation to something later in the series. But what I found interesting in this read through of it, or this listen of this section, was that when they find the hand cart and they start pumping the hand cart to move it, it starts speaking. It says like, good job, or whatever, keep going, good job, all that. You make sure to drink your whatever. I paused that and I grabbed my copy of the original edition of it because I was curious if that is in the original or if that was in the revised edition. And sure enough, it is only in the revised edition, which I just think is an interesting detail to kind of have King kind of connect the technology in this book to stuff that happens later, like in terms of North Central Positronics and a whole vast number of things that happen.
Right.
So I just thought that was a nice little kind of tidbit of interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's funny you picked up on that. I didn't realize that was only in the revised edition.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. So then they get so the way that they kind of go through the subway thing, they are pushing the hand car, they're pumping it and everything, they're going through the railways. It's dark. Like when they describe the slow mutants, as I think that like they're described as like subterranean creatures that live without daylight and everything. It made me want to watch The Descent again, which creeps me out to no end. But that was what I was visualizing this time around.
Nice.
Yeah.
They isn't it described that they don't they glow green?
I think
Did
so.
I misread that?
I think I think so. I think part of them glow. I think, I'm not sure, but yeah.
I'm a little unclear on that, but
Yeah.
And some of them, I love the description again, the descriptive writing by King, because it he builds the environment as well. Like I love how I think when they first encounter one of the slow mutants, he describes the smell of just a smell of dampness and wetness.
Yeah.
And then they see the green glowing, and at one point when they're attacked, the one of them that attacks, its limbs have been replaced with tentacles that have suckers on them and stuff. And I'm like, man, he's going all out on the description of these things. It's bananas. And
again, it's the fireworks display. Just that it's so awesome.
Totally.
Yeah. The action set piece of that, where Roland is shooting at them, mixed with Jake's kind of inherent fear that Roland is going to sacrifice him or leave him and everything. Like there's a moment where after the threat subsides a little bit, Jake's like, I thought you were going to leave me. I thought and to your point about him being kind of not, I guess, bratty teenager, an emotional teenager, is he's angry. He's just like, I thought you were going to leave me. Like, this is the level to which my brain has adapted to being under the safety umbrella, in air quotes, of Roland Deschain, that at any turn I could die, not because he's not capable of protecting me, but because he is willing to sacrifice me to get to his end, which is just such interesting character development for Jake, specifically for him to kind of have that in his mind this entire time. And then obviously it ends up with him dying, which we'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, I just really like that.
Yeah, and he's another aspect of it is, just real quickly, that he's trapped. Like he can't.
Yeah.
It's not like he can go back. He can't get back to his world, obviously. But it's not like he can just turn around and go back the other direction. He would be
right.
He still needs Roland. Like he can't survive without Roland. And so it's like, well, I could leave, but I would die anyways. So I might as well stay here. And that's never explicitly said, but it's just implied. He can't.
Well, he said that that happened in the last section, at the end of the last section, where he says that he's they have that conversation where he's like, I can I can just go about my own way and figure things out, and then Roland calls his bluff and everything. Okay. And I like how that's kind of reversed in a sense in this section, in this chapter, because Roland has that moment that I can't remember if I said it in this or in Patreon, but he has that moment where he thinks, like, as they're facing the Man in Black, he thinks that, you know, we could just go. Like me and Jake, we could cry off, we can go. I can be with him. Like we can live our lives free of the pursuit of the Man in Black for years and then pick it up later. Like we can pick it up later and find him after Jake has grown up a little bit, after we've bonded a little bit. But Roland is not capable of doing that because the pull to the tower and to the Man in Black is way too strong. So I just like the kind of the reversal of that, or the way that dilemma comes across to Roland as it also did to Jake earlier in the previous chapter. I think it's a good symmetry.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. One of the big things that happens after the big set piece with the slow mutants and everything, they reach a subway station. This is a great, vivid kind of look into the world that has moved on for Roland. How did you feel about the descriptions of this decayed, probably like radioactively decayed subway station environment, and the idea of the old people and the way that it's so far in the past for Roland that he doesn't even understand what a subway is. He doesn't understand what could have, like the description of seeing the rails and just visualizing like bullets being like massive bullets being transported or something. It's just really interesting. So what did you think of this part?
Yeah, I don't know. This is maybe the first time since we started this project, including the previous 3 segments we've done on the Dark Tower. This is one of the first times where I sort of glossed over a little bit. I was like, I don't, and I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that I wanted to keep going. Like I wanted to move. I wanted the plot to move forward to get to the climax of the story. And so I was a little glossed over during the segment. I felt like it was a little not forced or out of place, but it felt out of pace for me, I guess.
Okay.
And that's just my reaction. Again, I'm not saying it's an issue with the book. that's how I reacted to it. So I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was eerie for sure. Especially the use of gas, like, you know, was this like were these people victims of a war? Was this like a genocide? Was this an accident? Like, what happened here? It's interesting for sure, but in any kind of depth, I think, of the meaning of this moment was kind of lost on me, unfortunately. So I don't have a real strong opinion on it, I guess.
Sure. You know, that's interesting. And that makes sense, I guess, especially since it came directly after like a big set piece. And like you said, we're in the rush to get to the end. We're in the end game of the Gunslinger at this point. For me, I just think that the detail of the setting of it is pretty interesting and remarkable, especially since we've gone through towns and places that are inhabited in terms of, well, Tull and Brown's farm. That's basically it. And then the way station with Jake. But now we're seeing, like, after having gone through some flashbacks with Roland's childhood, we're now seeing a section of the world that has moved on. We're seeing a section of a place that we have, for us, some physical familiarity with, whereas previously we have, like, you know, the use of "Hey Jude" and some colloquialisms that the Man in Black uses from some idioms that he uses from our universe and everything. But here we have like a description of a scenario or a place that is absolutely horrific. I mean, it's a subway station that, by all accounts, seems to be post like thousands of years later is I think how Roland described it, but thousands of years after some kind of biological warfare, some kind of end world sort of destruction. And the way that it's described as like the person being like mummified and how they just disintegrate when Roland touches them and everything. And then just the casual conversation, or maybe not so casual, but the conversation about how Roland says like, yeah, the old people had a gas, they made a gas, and that's what happened. And then Jake, being a product of, our real world, is like, yeah, they probably used it in a war and killed a bunch of people and killed everyone. It's just like, I don't know. I just feel like there's a level of vibrance that gives to the story in a different way than what we have than what we've experienced in the previous chapters. So that's a long-winded way of saying I really liked it, and I dug it a lot.
It's very matter of fact how they talk about it. Yeah, it is odd from a cadence standpoint, I guess, the way they react to it.
Yeah, and it is kind of incongruous with the whole fireworks display analogy that I've been making. So like, because it is like post fireworks for this scenario, like far post it, but
right.
But yeah. So then Tiny, there are other worlds than these, and Jake Chambers is sacrificed by Roland for the pursuit of the tower. How did you feel this time around with Jake being let go and falling into the empty abyss, the chasm, after saying that iconic line to Roland, "Go then, there are other worlds than these"? How'd you feel about it this time around?
It's pretty funny because that's obviously one of my favorite lines in the whole book. One of the iconic lines of the book. And this is another first on this project. Again, this is my first time doing the audiobook, and I flat out did not like George Guidall's delivery of the line.
I honestly felt like it was a little bit flat here. I will say.
To me, I don't know that it was flat. I don't know. I feel like that line should be full of sorrow and like acceptance, like a solemn acceptance of the situation by Jake. That's how I always interpreted it. Like him just kind of looking up longingly or solemnly at Roland and saying, "Go then, there are other worlds than these." But George Guidall was like kind of shouting it and was like, "Go then, there are other worlds than these." And I'm like, oh, what? I don't know. It seemed strange to me. I didn't. It obviously does. It doesn't ruin it for me. I'm not going to say that, but it was just it almost took me out of it a little bit, to be honest. It just did not seem on par with how I've always envisioned that line being delivered. And I hate to say that because I've done nothing but praise his performance and everything. Right. But I feel like it should be a solemn affair, and it didn't come across that way at all when he delivered it. I still enjoyed it, and it's still a phenomenal moment, and again, the entirety of the story, it's still potent and great. But I guess maybe I'm just a little disappointed in that part. That performance anyways. I still love the line. It's a perfect line. The most iconic line from the book is "The man in black fled across the desert and the gunslinger followed." And I've always liked that, of course, but I've always preferred "Go then, there are other worlds than these." That's always been probably my favorite line from the series. To have it sort of not meet my expectations, I guess, in the audiobook was pretty disappointing, I guess.
Yeah, I get that. It lacks that emotional kind of pull from it that you get when you read it physically. Because I like, it feels like it's such a it is a pivotal moment. Unquestionably, it is a defining moment for the Roland character, like for the series as a whole. It is a big thing. The way that George Guidall in the audiobook delivers that just feels like it is, I don't know if the intention is to communicate a certain sense of defeatism on Jake's part, or like fatalism, that he's just like, there's no way I can get out of it. I'm done. Go then. There are other worlds than these. It just lacks a lot of like subtext to that there. But yeah,
it almost seemed to me like, and this is not a bad interpretation of it, but it seemed to me it was almost heroic, like in a war movie where the guy's like, you guys go on without me, I'll hold them off. Like, it kind of had that feeling to it, and that's cool in its own way, and it's not bad. Like, I don't dislike that, but I had always envisioned it in such a different way. And maybe that's whoever directed this audiobook, maybe that was their interpretation. I don't know if it was George Guidall. I don't know if that's what Stephen King originally intended it to be like. I just don't know. I'd be curious if anyone else had a similar reaction to it. But yeah, I mean, maybe I'm being too harsh on it too. It could be I had it built up in my head too much.
Honestly, that could be it on for me too. Honestly, but it is. Because I think in the context, it is one of the most famous lines of the entire series. Like you said, it's second to the Man in Black fled across the desert. Did I say Fan in Black? The Man in Black fled across the desert, and the Gunslinger followed. But it is supposed to be the emotional crux of the story. But also, in listening to it this time around and reading the books, it really kind of feels like there's an emphasis leading up to this point on Jake being aware that he is not long for this world. He is aware that there is a certain level of inevitability to his demise. And I think that there is a read of it that, like I said, it could be that defeatist or fatalist kind of reaction to it, or that kind of acceptance of it immediately. But when physically reading it, there's just so much more importance that's given to it on a personal level for me and for you as well. So yeah, yep, I don't know.
Same for me. Samesies.
Yeah. Yep. But after Jake's little tumble, Roland is now going, like, he's stepping out. He's going up to the Man in Black, and then we're going to get, the finale of the Gunslinger. So, yeah, are you excited about that?
I'm really excited. Nice. Because this is again more iconic moments from the book. I haven't looked it up yet. How long is this segment? Is it? I want to say it's short. Is it like 30 minutes? 45 minutes?
Yeah, it's like 45 minutes, I think.
That's what I thought. But still, for like a denouement, like that's huge. And I remember it being, it's a conversation. I remember it being like basically just a conversation, a palaver around literally around a campfire. Yeah. And I remember some of the themes and elements of it, but I'm just literally stoked as shit to listen to the performance. Like
absolutely.
I have a feeling, despite my reaction to the go then there are other worlds than these lines, I have a feeling it's gonna deliver so many new themes and levels and layers for me personally. Hearing it hearing it that way and as a performance, as opposed to just reading words on a page. So I'm really looking forward to that. Nice.
And we will, of course, be talking about it in the next episode of the podcast, where we're going to be finishing up the Gunslinger. And then I think we're going to do a separate episode after that. That's just a wrap up for the Gunslinger. But yeah, we're almost done, Tiny, with the first book of this little project. How do you feel now that we're almost to the end of the first book?
Awesome.
Of an 8-book series.
It's awesome, but it's I was going to say it's awesome, but it's also really deceptive because this is not only 1 out of 8 books, but it's the shortest.
Yeah. It's as they say in the book, it's the end of the beginning. So, yeah.
Right. It's kind of just scratching the surface.
Yep. So I'm looking forward to that. So next time on the show, we're going to be doing the Gunslinger Chapter 5, the Gunslinger and the Man in Black. Tiny, before we go, is there anything we want to say more to the people listening and everything? Any overall thoughts on this section?
Overall thoughts on the section, again, great. Like I'm just loving how I'm getting something new from this read through. I feel like that's just a characteristic of these books because even when I read the physical copies, it's the same way. You get something new every time you read it, and I hope it's the same when I read it for the 7th time or the 10th time when I'm an old man. I hope it keeps doing that. So
yeah, same here. Well said.
Awesome.
All right, cool. Well, we are going to end the episode now. Thank you guys so much for listening. Let us know what you thought about this chapter of The Gunslinger. And once again, check out Patreon if you're willing to give a little bit of dough. Patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. We have a ton of content there. Also, follow me on TikTok, OV Podcasts. So I post a bunch of stuff there. So I'll probably post like a little TikTok dance thing or whatever when we finish the Gunslinger. But if you're listening to this because you saw one of my TikToks, let us know. Matt@obsessiveviewer.com. That's also where you can contact us with any thoughts you have on the episodes or anything. What was your high school football experience like? Again, that's Matt@obsessiveviewer.com. I'm going to start playing us out. Check out our other shows, Obsessive Viewer, where we just did 2 episodes, one for Oppenheimer, one for Barbie. So we did the whole Barbenheimer thing there. So check that out. And check out Anthology, my solo podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. Long days and pleasant nights.
And may you have twice the number.
And now, enjoy this short clip from our Patreon exclusive RSS feed. For the full clip and more exclusive Patreon content, such as early access to episodes, TV, book, and movie reviews and reaction recordings, commentary tracks, and Patreon potpourri episodes, go to patreon.com/obsessiveviewer and become a patron at the minimum rate of $1 per month. Thank you and enjoy. She is kind of running things. She's roped into this to this potentially supernatural story and case and everything. And what I found really just refreshing at this point in the Holly Gibney verse is that this is now, I think, the first time that we see her doing the investigative legwork. She's doing parts of the investigation on her own. She doesn't have Pete Huntley. She doesn't have Jerome. She doesn't have anyone to really play off of. She is doing the legwork. And I really like that as a sort of, maybe not passing the torch quality from Bill Hodges or anything, but there is this ephemeral sort of, passing of the torch thing where she is now the head of the investigation. She is now the person who is going to be a focal character in the search for the truth of what happened.
This podcast was edited and produced by Matt Hurt and presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. You can find links to all of our shows at ObsessiveViewer.com/podcasts. For exclusive bonus content, including reviews, commentaries, and B-roll episodes, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/ObsessiveViewer. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.